Listening to this recording, I'm sorry it's not very spiritual discourse, but being an economist, I'm a bit hooked on things like this. It used to be the case, believe it or not, in England, especially during Victorian times, the Bank of England pursued a constant interest rate policy, something like 2.5% base rate for base rate is the rate at which you can cash a bill of exchange. And bills of exchange are simply promissory notes that you will pay at a certain future date. You get them guaranteed by, if you like, a sort of insurance policy. Someone else will underwrite the risk to the public of receiving this bill. And you can now, therefore, use the bill as money. You can use it as payments, in effect, because you can go to a discount house, another type of financial institution, and cash the bill, receive the money now in your hand, less, of course, the commission, therefore, to the discount house. You've got the money. Discount house is willing to hold the bill. In other words, lend the money to the system. Discount houses are funded by the bank, central bank anyway, so everybody's happy. But of course this is a sort of inflationary thing, because the private market is making money according to what feels demanded in the market, the finance market. And well, it can be inflationary. It's been argued in the past that inflation is not necessarily bad from a macroeconomic point of view. Overall national prosperity, because the economy tends to be more adjustable and fluid at inflation sort of situation, where we move into new industries relatively easily, and their growth and their opportunities, because we can always create money. The market creates itself, in fact, with bills of exchange. And the central bank is willing to anyway, because being a private organisation now, always has been in the case of the Bank of England, but it conforms to what the government might impose on it from time to time in emergencies, but has a great freedom to profit max like other entrepreneurial free market institutions. The market's not that free, of course, because the government does impose, and as we know in our society, there's some tension between what the banks want and what the government wants, and well, the banks have an uncanny ability to come out on top through time. But then the economy does quite well in general in Western mixed economies, as we call it, where we've got some government imposition on some degree of free market economy. But it's a sort of managing chaos in a strange way. A bit like the international system of so many different nations and cultures and religions, and we end up with divisions according to such. And divisions can easily develop into war, and not so easily return to peace. So the war drags on, whatever wars you start. And of course hatred's transmitted from one generation to another according to who's controlling the story, the media, the history, the education, the media, broadly speaking. And that's the sort of system we're living in. Now this, from a heavenly point of view, may have the advantage that one way or another it gives such a variety on the planet of situations of life for us, its people, that there's opportunity for an incredible variety of experiences and learning situations, and perhaps we sort out our values accordingly. The somewhat Eastern pessimistic view is that it takes an extremely long time, not just your lifetime, but perhaps millions of lifetimes before you really get your values right and don't need to return to this study situation, this learning, this school. The Western Christian view aimed at what was considered an expediency of having what we call Christian population. His view was you only live once, and then there's a judgment. This is, fundamentalist sort of Christian view. And then it's decided whether you go to heaven or hell, which is puts quite a stress on your present life, because you're eternally wondering whether you're to blame, whether you're coming up to speed, whether you'd be judged as good or bad. The evangelical Christian rescue of this situation was that a tremendous emphasis on forgiveness, such that you were confident you would be judged. Okay, acceptable after your life, your single life experience here, so that you pass from judgment unto life. But there's not many denominations that faithfully clung to this view, and the stress seemed to remain. But then, of course, it was thought that the stress might be helpful in controlling a country, in that you had an inner conscience situation that was keeping you on track and keeping the moral order that seemed to be appropriate to the fabric of holding society together. And, well, it was suspiciously very much in the interests of elites to have this sort of Western Christian religion one way and another. And you could say historically, well, it coincides with a great material success of the West in the last, what we call from the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century onwards, and has made superpowers like the British Empire and the American, the US Empire. But there are other empires in the world that have been, at least in a more transient way, successful, like the Soviet Union and, well, I suppose you would say the Stalinist Empire, really. And now the Chinese Empire, communist of a sort. Well, not really communist, is it? It's SUCP, whatever that is. It's not quite what we would call communal, is it? Okay, I've said enough, and doesn't seem a very spiritual discourse, does it? I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.